Piccolo's redemption arc was one of the biggest and most beloved aspects of the Saiyan saga, and for many American viewers was one of the first things that they had actually seen when they first watched Dragon Ball, as many had started with Z. Which is something that I find is even more enhanced when those people actually read and watch the entirety of Piccolo's story by watching or reading the events of OG Dragon Ball. So here, I want to try and really break it down as to how it happened. From even before his very own birth, Piccolo was essentially defined by the goal that his father had set for him to avenge their clan and fulfill King Piccolo's plans for conquest. During his first appearance, he appears at the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai to challenge Goku. It's not something directly called out on screen, but the fact he's actually participating in this tournament shows he's already rather different from his father. He even makes sure to follow the rules of the tournament by not killing anyone, and even seems to show respect to any warriors with actual skill. The anime even added in a scene where Piccolo saves a young boy and his mother from falling debris during a storm, which, along with his actions during the tournament, helped showcase just how different from his dad he was. Even though he still planned for world domination, the actual amount of evil actions that we see him commit are rather limited. This mostly amounts to his attempt at killing Goku and his destroying the tournament ring and surrounding area during the end of his fight with Goku, though we never see him directly killing anyone specifically on screen. Then comes his actual defeat at Goku's hands, where Goku not only makes sure his life is spared by Kami, but is also healed by him and allowed to go free. This eventually, of course, leaves Piccolo alive to be able to team up with Goku 5 years later against Raditz. This was really the first deviation from his father's plan that we see directly get called out. Before, Piccolo would have just trained to eventually just take over the world and defeat Goku by himself. But now, the arrival of Raditz throws a wrench in those plans and does things nobody thought he would. And we get to see by the end of the fight, Piccolo technically gets the thing he wanted for all those years when he kills Goku and Raditz at the same time. Now, he's finally gotten what he wanted, but he can't even enjoy it, as he now found out that even stronger Saiyans are coming in a year. So he does something nobody expected him to do by taking Gohan and training him in his ways. By taking him out into the wilderness to see if he can survive by himself, which was actually the exact same way that Piccolo himself had grown up. Kami himself even comments that the Piccolo of old would have never done this, and Piccolo had truly changed at this point, since he isn't even a Mazoku anymore, as shown by how Goku and Raditz are able to go to the afterlife. At this point, Piccolo needed Gohan, as he saw the power Gohan held in him, and needed him to be able to use it once the Saiyans arrived. So Piccolo watches over him, even helps him out by giving him some apples on his first day, and over time as Gohan starts to be able to fight and fend for himself in the wilderness, the two begin to start training together, and Piccolo learns to actually genuinely care about the kid. This scene in chapter 211 where Gohan and Piccolo sit by a fire at the end, with Gohan bruised and tired from their hard training, and asks about Goku and Piccolo's history, to which Piccolo says their fighting will continue after the Saiyans are defeated. But what Gohan says next, that in the years between the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai and the arrival of Raditz, Goku had spoken very kindly about Piccolo, noting that he wasn't as bad a guy as he used to be, to which Gohan actually agrees. And mind you, Goku's only encounter with this Piccolo was Piccolo trying to kill him, and Gohan, who for years heard stories about how awful Piccolo was from his mother and grandfather, who got abandoned by Piccolo in those woods, and for months had been hurt and bruised by this guy for months, Goku and Gohan had every reason to hate Piccolo, and yet they didn't. And Piccolo is actually frustrated by these kind words. But why? Because it goes against the believed image he had of himself. The son and reincarnation of the Demon King. These aren't things the Demon King should be doing, and he doesn't like that. Yet here he is, being told by the people who should hate him more than anyone else, telling him he isn't what he thinks he's meant to be. And there's another scene that I like to mention, which is an anime exclusive, but it features Gohan and Piccolo sparring, and Piccolo accidentally uses his laser eyes on Gohan, which Piccolo said he promised not to do. And Piccolo says that you can't trust an enemy on the battlefield to be able to fight honorable. But Gohan merely says that Piccolo isn't the enemy, which, along with the campfire scene in the anime, is something that Piccolo remembers upon his death, reminiscing about the fond memories he had actually had with Gohan during that 1 year period. Piccolo only took in Gohan at first to use him, and the care he showed to him was mostly just to make sure he would survive so he could help him beat the Saiyan. But in that time, Gohan showed Piccolo genuine kindness. Gohan was the first person who ever treated Piccolo with anything other than hatred for the care Piccolo showed him. Piccolo's life of trying to live how his father wanted him to be had brought him nothing but pain and failure. Yet the few months that he had spent with Gohan and caring for him, he received for the first time positive interactions. Goku and Gohan's genuine kind personalities in that time had rubbed off on him, which motivates him, in the end, to give up his life to save Gohan. The care that he had for Gohan went from being a means to exploit Gohan to genuinely caring about him as a friend due to Gohan's friendly nature. And that's really what it comes down to. Up until the Saiyan Saga, Piccolo had lived his life not making his own choices and finding his own reasons for fighting, but for fulfilling the grudge of his father. But once he had started deviating from that plan, doing and receiving things his father had never intended, he came to enjoy that more than his father's wishes. Literally while he dies, he says and thanks Gohan for being the first person to ever treat him as something other than a monster, which outright tells us just how much Gohan's kindness had meant to Piccolo in that time. And while that did most of the changes, that wasn't the only factor involved. While after the Saiyan Saga and his sacrifice, Piccolo is now a much nicer guy and is 100% on the side of good, he still has a rather aggressive and angry streak to his personality. The next part of Piccolo's development came from his fusions with Nail and Kami. While on the surface, both of these fusions with them, Piccolo still remains the dominant personality, and on the surface he looks exactly the same. There are subtle differences that come after these fusions. At first, his fusing with Nail didn't seem to have too much effect on his personality, merely gaining Nail's memories and some certain feelings towards Namekian, such as his bond with Dende, and the aggressive streak to his personality is still there after that fusion. It's not until Piccolo refuses with Kami, his good counterpart. It's still a subtle change, but it's much more overt than what happened with Nail. The arrogant and aggressive streak to his personality is pretty much gone at this point, replaced with a more stoic, wise, and calm personality that he retains for the rest of the manga. And you can notice at the end of the Cell arc how both of these fusions have now come into play. Piccolo now moves on to the Lookout and essentially serves as a mentor figure, much like Kami once did, and in a much more wise and kind-hearted way than his original apprenticeship towards Gohan, as well as living with Dende to guide him, which also factors into Nail's fusion, as now Piccolo gains something of a big brother mentor bond with Dende, much like how Nail once had one with him back on Namek. And that's generally the role Piccolo's maintained ever since. He's maintained that position as a wise, stoic, kind mentor figure who sometimes gets annoyed. And that's all I really got to say about this one. I feel like I really covered most of the major bits of Piccolo's arc and like why certain things mattered to him. And I don't think enough people mention the role that the fusions played in Piccolo's change in personality. Because it is subtle, and they do say Piccolo will remain the dominant half, but there are subtle nuances to that change in Piccolo's demeanor and what he does that you have to look closer in order to pick up on, which I don't think enough people did. And so now, if you liked what I had to say here, please do me a favor by liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, and following me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I have more videos coming out soon. Thank you, and have a nice day.